Hey everybody! In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make these spooktastic zombie landscapes. These are so much fun, and you'll just be amazed at how easy it is. I'm starting with a piece of cold press watercolor paper and a wide brush, an eyedropper, and just a cheap paintbrush that you don't care very much about. To begin with, I am painting with India ink directly onto wet watercolor paper. I have sprayed both sides of this paper. That is really important to the technique. So make sure your watercolor paper is wet before you begin. Next, for the magic potion for this technique, I have a small yogurt jar with bleach in it. And I will draw a little bit of this up into the eyedropper. And I will also use my, I don't care about this very much, paintbrush to get a little bit of bleach on and begin painting it onto the ink. Now you'll notice through all of the samples that I'm going to show you today that when you paint the bleach on, the image continues to develop, sort of like a photograph. And you'll see a lot of changes. So definitely just keep an eye on it after you apply the bleach. See what the bleach wants to do as it sort of moves through the wet watercolor paper. And you'll get some really cool effects. If you want to just stop it, you can do that by drying it. But I think the magic of this technique is the sort of fractally patterns that come out as the bleach travels across the inked watercolor paper. So in a sample that I'll show you later, I'll actually just let the camera run a little bit so you can see sort of a time lapse. But these little drop down parts that are sort of moving towards you right now in this image are just magical. Now I'm going to paint my favorite thing, which is these clouds. And the cool thing about the fractal patterns coming out of the cloud images is they almost look like lightning. So depending on what kind of shape you want to paint or what kind of moody landscape you want, this can be a really, really fun effect. So I'm just doing abstract cloud shapes, but watch how this entire scene is changing right in front of your eyes. It is magical and it is so much fun to watch. So these almost get like a backlit look because that bleach around the edges of the cloud is a little bit lighter. It's so much fun. I can't stand it. So much fun. Well, I'll add some more into the center of the clouds and then just sort of mess around with them a little bit until they get to be how I like them. I'm adding another little cloud over at the edge, but this is really pretty cool. Now your bleach will acquire some ink as you are dipping your paintbrush in there. So just be aware of that. Also, bleach sort of has a shelf life when it's been out of the container for a while, so change your bleach as often as you need to. Look at this amazing and spooky little scene. I love it! Now, I also wrote bleach on here because this is also the same kind of jar that I make my salad dressing in. So you can see this was my sister's salad dressing recipe, but then I stole it for the craft room because that's what we do. We take everything in the whole house and steal it for the craft room. Now the India ink will be permanent when it's dry. That's one of the great things about India ink. So I will just set this on a piece of craft mat to dry and sort of further develop. You can see how much that bottom part has changed already. I'm going to get the extra ink off of my work surface, and I'm going to take one that's already dry that I did earlier that's really super dramatic, and we will turn this into a little zombie scene. This one also sort of looks like a beach type scene, but it can also just be an abstract landscape. It could be fields, anything like that. So I'm taking my favorite little zombie stamp. Look at the little fractals coming out of the clouds. Gosh, I love it. I did like all over clouds on this one, and so the sky is very, very dramatic. So I had already been stamping zombies, so this was already set up in my MISTI. So I will take off this little zombie and I will place him in the scene. Now this is watercolor paper, so make sure you have it held down really well. There is going to be a little bit of warping, so you'll want to make sure you have your super strong magnet. So I'm going to have the zombie walking through the surf, because if there's anything scarier than a beach at night, if you're of the age that saw Jaws when you were a teen, the only thing scarier than a beach at night is a beach at night with a zombie on it. So it really seems perfect for Halloween. I'm going to add an extra magnet here just to be super, super sure that this is held down. And I am using some Gina K amalgam ink to stamp my little zombie. Now it is cold press, so you will probably have to stamp it a couple of times. You could also use VersaFine Clair, which I frequently do on watercolor paper. Look how spooky that is. Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. So just for the safest zombie possible, I will stamp him again. And now he's nice and black against that fun little backdrop. So I will get him all cleaned up. Now he is stained from my favorite ink, my Hero Arts Indigo ink. I love that ink. So my zombies are always going to be bright blue. And then I will put one down here, sort of in the foreground. A wave of zombies on the beach at night is the scariest of all three of the possibilities. If only I had a teeny tiny shark fin I could put out there in the water, this would be the perfect card. The perfect card. Now he will show up really well because I'm stamping him over the bleached portion. When you're doing this, you'll want to make sure your watercolor paper is 100% dry. If you stamp onto a damp, bleached piece of watercolor paper, that ink is just going to wick out and get bleached. So you'll make sure that that's really, really dry before you start. So I will stamp him a third time as well to get him super perfect. Oh, I love this. This is the most fun Halloween card ever. Let me show you what that looks like up close, where you can see all of the details of those amazing clouds that have like lightning-y patterns coming out from behind them. I just think it's so awesome. And then down in the front where you can see the bleach sort of creeping towards the bottom of the card, there's just so much detail and with literally zero effort. It takes no painting skill whatsoever. So here's the second one that we just did. This one is still wet, but you can see how much that changed from just like a very thin line across the front of the watercolor paper to now this super detailed and textured scene with both clouds and either water or sort of looks like crops. It could be like corn or something. But we will move on and do other colors. Now, I have not tested this with all India inks, just the brands that I have. So I wanted to make sure that it also worked with the colored versions of this ink. So I'm using a blue and a magenta to get sort of a purpley sky and a lighter foreground. And then I will just go through the same process. So I will have this sped up a little bit so that you can watch the time lapse of how this sort of develops. Now I had that sitting in a little puddle over there, so I'm going to kind of get some of that extra ink off of there, and I will just paint some more clouds. Now the clouds initially, when I did this the first time, I did them with the eyedropper. So you can do them with the eyedropper or do them with your paintbrush. It's totally up to you. But I will just let you watch this scene change at a sped up rate, and it's just magical to watch that moving towards you, increasing detail. It's just so much fun. So I hope you give this a try soon. Here are my finished cards with this process. Just in time for Halloween. Still not done with Halloween. So head over to my blog for more information, and thanks so much for watching.